Welcome to ECR Tools. Once again, we come to you with more information. On our last video, we touched on the issue of the government Rwanda scheme and the judgment by the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom rejecting the government's Rwanda scheme. I did mention in that video some of the international treaties that if we were to carry on with that scheme, we would have breached as a nation. Number one was the national law, which is the Human Rights Act 1998, the UK Human Rights Act, which actually protects the rights of UK citizens, foreign citizens in the UK, and also asylum seekers equally. The other international treaties or regional treaties, I should say, the European Convention on Human Rights, UDHR, which we are also a signatory to as a nation, we would have also breached that treaty, regional treaty. But not only that, we would have also breached the International Convention for Civil and Political Rights, which is the ICCPR. There are other treaties, international treaties, such as the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights as well, and ultimately the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And so this video is being made on this day just to basically bring your awareness to the International Human Rights Day, which is the 10th of December, which is the forthcoming International Human Rights Day. It's basically to encourage you as a citizen, as an individual, to get involved in the act of knowing your rights. Because the more that all of us get to know our rights, what our rights are, the better that we are going to be protected as a people under the power of the state and these powerful institutions nationally and internationally. Now, there are certain human atrocities that predates the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was basically declared on the 10th of December 1948. Now, following on from that, this is a declaration. So in effect, in as much as, obviously the UK being a nation was actually one of the forerunners in, bringing in this declaration after the Second World War. It was not necessarily a binding international treaty. So therefore, following on from this Universal Declaration of Human Rights was the birth of the International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights, which is the ICCPR, which was in December 1966. Once again, when that was established, this is what protects our rights, our liberties, as a people, our freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of association, freedom of thought, equality before the law, the right to a fair trial, obviously protection from torture and things like a degradation of treatment and yes, and all these I would say these good things that protects our rights as human beings, and even disproportionate and excessive punishment on individuals. And so once again, this happened in 1966, but it was actually ratified on the 23rd of March 1976, and United Kingdom as a nation also ratified this treaty in 1976. Now, with our position on basically ratifying this International Human Rights Treaty, the UK was then bound to ensure that to ensure basically the implementation of the details of this treaty in national law as a way of protecting citizens and individuals, being citizens, being foreign people living in the UK, and also asylum seekers. And obviously, if we were to have gone ahead with this Rwanda scheme, in as much as this wouldn't have been deemed necessarily as torture to obviously the genuine asylum seekers, and I qualify that as genuine asylum seekers because nobody is really interested in people that are really not necessarily asylum seekers, but obviously they're probably economic migrants. This video doesn't necessarily cover the interests of such people, but it's basically covering the interests of people that are genuinely escaping persecution from their home countries that comes in here. And so it would have been a breach to obviously for the nation to dispose these people of to Rwanda. Under the international treaty, the ICCPR, it would have been deemed not necessarily as torture, but it would have been deemed as a degradation or a degrading treatment of this asylum seeker, and also would have been deemed as a sort of a disproportionate punishment if these people were to have been shipped to or basically disposed onto Rwanda, and then maybe subsequently may have been found to have been further deported to their country, being the refoulement, non-refoulement, and also the fact that their lives may have been probably abused whilst they were outside the UK. And so this International Human Rights Day, which is the 10th of December, all are encouraged to take time from their busy lifestyles to look at the basically the your rights as a person. It is the responsibility of you as a citizen to ensure that you know what your rights are, and also pass on this information to your children so that they are all aware. It is necessary as a people for us to take time in our lives to ensure that our lives are not being abused. Just to give you an idea, this is just a little story that I'll share with you from somebody that I know that, for example, this would have been deemed as, in a way, a breach of their economic, social, and culture, basically a breach under the economic, social, and cultural rights. It would have been more deemed economic in the sense that, you have a utility company that have arranged to basically take a certain amount of money from this person, and then you found out that in a particular season they get then called in or a letter sent over to say, oh, we've increased your monthly, basically your monthly direct debit, say just for argument's sake, from say 300 to maybe 450 pounds a month. And so this is some of the issues that involves, one should say, the abuse of the person's right, because these companies are not basically being regulated properly, and they feel that they can do these type of things. And so, these are the things that we should be looking out for to ensure that we are always protecting, knowing, and also protecting our own human rights. Now, predating some of the major abuses that have occurred in the world would have been in America, the times of the slave trade, of which during the American Declaration of Independence in 1776, that they basically put in their Bill of Rights in 1789 to basically abolish the activities of slave trade. But then you also see in the times of the Second World War, that extensive abuse of the rights of humanity, and even the most dangerous basically abuse of human rights, i.e. through the Holocaust. And so come the end of the Second World War, it was necessary for the establishment of the United Nations in 1945, which then led on, the charter then led on to the international, basically Universal Declaration of Human Rights, basically putting these rights on paper to ensure that nations who were basically signatories to the United Nations, currently standing at about 193 nations, were then putting these the contents of these declaration into various constitutions. Now in the UK we have a parliamentary what do we call it, sovereignty. So there isn't a constitution just like the United States whereby things are written down and you can easily refer to. In the UK, it is deemed that the legislature is basically the representative of the people, and therefore they are then able to basically pass bills into law as basically it's like it's done as you go along. And so this is why it is necessary for people to really understand what it is that their rights are. But then following on, in as much as this declaration was made, which indicated that all men are born equal and free and have the right to live a life of dignity, of freedom, equity, and peace, we have actually noticed that with these rights given, at the same time, you can actually see the abuse also of the rights. And this is why, as advocates, that we stand firm to educate people so that they become very much aware of what their rights are and the responsibility of the state for these people. Because following on from all the atrocities, obviously dating back to the Second World War and even further back into slavery, and obviously the introduction of this Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we have seen further the likes of apartheid in South Africa, which ended in 1994, was a total basically abuse of the black majority that lived in South Africa. We have seen various parts of the world where there have been other forms of occupations and human suffering. But going on further, we can also see even most recent the story of George Floyd. All these constitute some degree of human rights abuse. And obviously the aftermath of that was the establishment of the Black Lives Matter movement, which basically went on to seek justice for the family of George Floyd. So as a people, it is important to ensure that we get to know what our rights are as a people, so that the state and these powerful institutions get to know that the people are aware of what their rights are. So I'll just go on briefly to mention some of the rights that are enshrined in the ICCPR, being the International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights, 1966, came into force in 1976, March 23rd, and also International Covenant for Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which is the ICESCR. And so some of the rights you find to be the freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of religion, the right to change your religion, the right to property, the right, basically your freedom of oppression, and also your ability as a grown-up person to be able to marry and form your own family, freedom from torture and any kind of degrading treatment or undue or disproportionate punishment, your equality before the law, the establishment of the rule of law that protects the individual, your rights to a fair trial, your economic, social, and cultural rights, i.e., your right to work, your right to housing, your right to food, and most recently, your right to adequate water, and also to the right for you to have a decent standard of living, and also your right to a fair wage. All these are rights that you as the individual you are entitled to because of the state's ratification of these international human rights treaty. This is why you as an individual and as a citizen does have these rights. And so without further ado, I am just going to go into this document and begin with a reading of the articles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, basically to basically get in line with this forthcoming International Human Rights Day, which is on the 10th of December 2023. Get involved if there is any community projects on this. Do get involved as an individual. The more you can all get involved, the better that it will become for every single individual and citizen of this nation. Right, so I'll go straight. I'm basically on the United Nations Human Rights page, and I'm going to go straight into the details of the Declaration of Human Rights. So the preamble says, whereas recognition of the inherent dignity of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. Whereas disregard and contempt for human rights have resulted in barbarous acts which have outraged the conscience of mankind, and the advent of a world which human beings shall enjoy freedom of speech and belief, of freedom from fear, and won't have been proclaimed as the highest aspiration of the common people. Whereas it is essential, if a man is not to be compelled to have recourse as a last resort to rebellion against tyranny and oppression, that man's right should be protected by the rule of law. Whereas it is essential to promote the development of friendly relationships between nations, whereas the people of the United Nations have in the Charter reaffirmed their faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and the worth of human persons, and in equal rights of men and women, have determined to promote social progress and better standards of living in a larger freedom. Whereas member states have pledged themselves to achieve in cooperation with the United Nations the promotion of universal respect for and the observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms. Whereas a common understanding of these rights and freedom is of the greatest importance for the full realization of this pledge. Now, therefore, the General Assembly proclaims this Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations, to the end that every individual, every organ of society, keeping this declaration constantly in mind, shall strive by teaching and education to promote respect for these rights and freedoms, and by progressive measures, national and international, to secure this universal and effective recognition and observance, both amongst the peoples of member states themselves and amongst people of territories under their jurisdiction. So hopefully you understood this, that basically the idea is for all of us to get ourselves educated, to promote that education so that we all know. Because as obviously it has been declared that all men are born equal and free, at the same time we see abuses, human right abuses that goes on. In more recent times, we are seeing more abuse of humans, I would say their economic, social, and cultural rights. That is where we're seeing a lot of people, basically, in terms of long hours of work, less pay, high energy bills, so that they, as a human being, you are putting in so much and getting so little. So this, you see that there is a section of abuse there. There are other aspects of human rights abuse, whereby when you look at multinational corporations activity in the global south, or you say developing nations, the extraction of mining resources and degradation of the environment, abuse of indigenous people, which are sometimes activities both conducted by the collaboration between multinational corporations and also local governments, or not say national governments, basically political leaders working hand in hand with these multinationals and causing abuse to indigenous people. And so these are I would say, the more modern forms of human rights abuse. And this is why we must all join in as one force to basically learn about what our rights are and do our utmost to ensure that these rights are protected and defended. So Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with a reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. So these are their 30 articles. So I may be doing this in 2 parts. And our next set of videos will go into the ICCPR, which obviously the United Kingdom is a signatory to. So Article 2 says, everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origins, property, birth, or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of political, jurisdictional, or international status of country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it is independent, trust, self-governing, or under any other limitation of sovereignty. Article 3 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the security of persons. Article 4 says no one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. Article 5 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says no one shall be subject to torture or to cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. And so this, you may see that may somehow be related to this Rwanda, basically asylum seeker Rwanda scheme, but it is more expressed under the ICCPR, which the United Kingdom is a signatory to. But as we go on further in the subsequent videos, that will become even clearer. But this, as I said, is a declaration, and therefore, in as much as binding international treaties are based on this. The International Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's a declaration and therefore a non-binding. So Article 6 says everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. Article 7 says all are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law, or are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation of this declaration and against any incitement to such discrimination. Article 8 says everyone has the right to an effective remedy by the competent national tribunal to act for acts violating the fundamental rights granted him by the Constitution or by law. And so if your rights are violated, you are entitled to be compensated. Article 9 says no one shall be subject to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. So it is illegal for anybody to basically be arbitrarily arrested and basically exiled from their nation. So Article 10, everyone is entitled in full equality to a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal in the determination of his rights and obligation and of any criminal charge against him. Article 11 says everyone charged with a penal offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty according to law in a public trial at which he has had all the guarantees necessary for his defense. And so this is interesting, whereby everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. But as you can see, recently I watched a film by Michael B. Jordan. I think it was called, Just Mercy, where people were put on death row in America. This is based on a true story. And, this lawyer found out that there was no evidence or very limited. There was practically no evidence. And these people were basically falsely put in prison, and they were on death row. And so if the Constitution was not available, then these people would have been executed. And even with that, when this, obviously Michael B. Jordan acting as the lawyer or the attorney defending these people, presented this factual evidence to the court, the lower court, regardless of that, the case, they were basically rejected until the case went federal into a higher court. And so this is where, under that circumstances, these persons were actually presumed guilty, and they were actually having to be proven innocent. So it's actually the reverse. And this is why it is necessary that everyone gets to know what their rights are under the law. No one shall be held guilty of any penal offense on account of any act or omission which did not constitute a penal offense under national or international law at that time when it was committed, nor shall a heavier penalty be imposed than the one that was applicable at the time the penal offense was committed. Article 12. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family home, or correspondence, nor to attack upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. Article 13 says, Article 13.1 says everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. And Article 13.2 says that everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and to return to his country. Article 14.1, everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. So as you can see, the rights of the asylum seeker is in Article 14 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I will repeat that again. It says everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. And this I will always emphasize: genuine asylum seekers. This right may not be invoked in the case of persecution genuinely arising from non-political crimes or from acts contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. Article 15, this is where I will end this section of the video and hopefully continue the remaining part of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in the next video. So this is going to be volume 1. And so Article 15 says that everyone has the right to a nationality. And Article 15.2 says no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality or denied the right to change his nationality. So it will be his or hers. And so this will be the first part of the video. We will continue in our next video from Article 16, and then at the end of this we'll continue on basically bringing to you the ICCPR, which is the International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights, which was, as I said, basically signed up in December 1966 and ratified on the 23rd of March 1976. Thank you once again for watching EEC Tours. Remember to like, share our video, add your comments and contributions. If you have any opinion, feel free to put that in the comment box. Be polite in your comments and be constructive and objective in your contributions. As I always say, this is a learning platform, an opportunity for all of us to basically share our knowledge, to help each other to understand what our rights are as a people within this nation. Thank you once again for watching. Until our next video, good night.